We'll go ahead and call to order this regular business meeting of the Council Bluffs Community School District Board of Directors. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Tripp? Here. Mr. Peters?
Here.
Ms. Myers?
Here.
Ms. Shudak?
Here.
Mr. Arthur?
Here.
Mr. Kazire?
Present.
And Mr. LaFurla.
Present. Now, if you will, please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the pledge. Thank you. Next is approval of our agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And our agenda has been approved. For us now is approval of the minutes of the work session and workshop meetings of September 13th, 2022. Is there a motion?
I'll motion to approve the minutes from the work session and workshop meetings of September 11th or 13th.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And the minutes have been approved. And next is a public participation. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board of matters of concern or items on the agenda this evening. We did have one individual request time to speak tonight. Bethany, are you here? Please come to the podium. Good evening.
I was here a year ago, the September 14th, 2021 Madison campus public hearing, where the board was deciding what to do with the old Target building. And at that time, I said, I'm going to remember what you guys said, so here I am back a year later just to remind everyone. During the presentation, it was said that selling the building would benefit our community by placing the property on the tax rolls and moving jobs into Council Bluffs. And Jason James from Heartland Properties said the prospective buyer would hire about 60 employees, eventually expand to 100. The annual salary for these positions would range between $60,000 and $100,000, with a few upper management positions exceeding $100,000, so an average salary between $70,000 and $75,000. So I went by the old Target building this weekend, and it still has the Council Bluffs Community School District sign on it, so it does not appear that our community is benefiting from these new jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have on the agenda the superintendent's report. Dr. Murillo?
Thank you, Mr. LaPerla. At this time, I'd like to invite Diane Ostrowski to the podium. She will be introducing our students this evening that we'll be celebrating, and we always love this time of year. We're so thankful that we're back into this kind of presentation, and that means school is up and going. And so, Ms. Ostrowski, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murillo. Through our Student Star Recognition Program, sponsored by our Council Bluffs Schools Foundation, we're pleased to shine a spotlight on students who achieve honors that are beyond our district even, and beyond our school community. From classroom standouts to star athletes, we want to share the story of their successes. So tonight, I'm proud to introduce you to 3 Thomas Jefferson High School students and 1 graduate who couldn't be here tonight. I was looking to see if he showed up here. This team earned an invitation to participate in the Iowa State Track and Field Meet last spring, and we're happy to finally get to recognize them here in the fall. Please help me recognize our Yellow Jackets who represented us in the Class 4A Distance Medley Relay. They are Victor Atupra. Victor, would you please come forward? Devin Bovey. Tyler Huey. And as I mentioned, 1 graduate, Roy Soriano, was also part of this relay team. And I'm going to tell you, because I didn't know, in the distance medley relay, each of the 4 athletes runs a leg of the relay but at increasing distances, right? In total, the distance run by the team is 4,000 meters, or about 2.5 miles. Who did relay leg one?
You're off of them.
Oh, I am? Okay.
They would like to run 4,000 meters.
Oh, okay.
It's a 1,600 meter relay.
Thank you, Coach Nielsen, and thank you for being here. All right, so 1,600, do you run different lengths? Okay, all right. Well, who's leg one? All right, okay. Two? And, okay, so Roy brought up the end. Okay, he brought you home. Okay, all right, well, Google, gosh darn it. All right. All right, well, congratulations to these talented athletes, parents. Coach Nielsen, thanks for being here tonight and all you do for 52 years of coaching our kids. And we'll take a picture and celebrate you.
We're going up there.
You got 52 more years.
And Mr. LaFurla, that concludes our report this evening.
Thank you, and congratulations to our students. Really, I know I speak for everybody up here, we really love this portion of our business meeting where we get to recognize the good work of our students and staff when those times come, so thank you. As part of our regular business meeting, this is where we try to take up all of our business items. So we do have a series of resolutions to consider this evening. First up is second reading of Policy 902, Public's Right to Know, Requests for Public Records and Records Retention. Is there a motion?
I can move to approve the revised policy 902, Public's Right to Know, Requests for Public Records and Record Retention as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And any discussion on the second reading of this policy? I know we had a good discussion after the first reading. Questions or concerns?
Yeah, I feel like this really just opens up clarifies that you can do electronic communication also as a request. And that kind of details in there that essentially about a half hour of work to find records is kind of, there's no charge for that. Personally, I think if the requests are reasonable, seeing how the district's all paid for by taxpayers, if you spent more time doing that, I think that would also be something that I think we should do. But I think the more and more as we put things online, it should be easier to get things fast. Anyway, so just share that.
Do we have any idea on the frequency with which records are requested? I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
so,
not
okay.
often.
Any other comments, questions?
When I did say Dean will take care of it all. All right. Nice.
I'll take care of it.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Ms. Shudek,
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire.
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla.
Yes, and the second reading of Policy 902 has been approved. Next up is approval of the Canesville Learning Center renovation bid. Is there a motion?
I move that the district approve the Midwest DCM of Omaha, Nebraska as the apparent low bid for the Canesville Learning Center project in the amount of $4,965,000, including in that price alternate number one.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions on the bid?
Out of curiosity, why are we not considering alternate two?
Really comes down to the price, but I'd like Mr. Myers to kind of talk about what is alternate two, so the community will know.
Yeah, well, currently the playground is
kind of the small rocks that we found that don't work particularly well, and the district's phasing those out. So for base bid, we put in what they call engineered wood mulch, which is kind of a fancy term for wood mulch. But it packs down a little bit better than regular wood mulch. But we thought it would be nice if the money was there to put in turf, basically a cushioned turf, which would be probably the most high-end you could have. And I think the district just decided that they didn't want to spend the additional funds for that.
Who would use those? Who would use that facility anyway?
So we have the transition centers there that has some elementary students. It's usually right around 3 to 5 students.
Do they use
So it's-
the outside for that?
They do use the outside playground, but it's a very small number of students.
General condition of that is
It's in
okay
good
to keep
condition.
it like it is?
We're keeping the playground equipment. We're taking out an older fitness course that was put in years ago, so we're taking that part out. We're also converting part of the playground on the north side into additional parking for the building.
I have a question, I guess, on the Midwest DCM was the low bid, but DR Anderson, $886 higher. I'm just curious, those are oddly close when you combine those two. I mean, not saying there's something funny on here, but that just seems strange to me they'd be that close. And have we looked at DR Anderson for an $886? Would they be a better, I mean, is there a one versus the other or something?
Well,
like that? I'm just curious.
I mean,
That's just really odd to be.
we went through a
that
long
much.
qualification for Midwest DCM for the Early Learning Center. They're doing that project, and we're very satisfied with what they've done so far with that. There was really no reason to go to the second bid, even though it was fairly close. And why it's close, I think it's just a coincidence. I'm sure they probably use a lot of the same subcontractors from the area. That could be part of it.
Maybe it's $1,000, just odd.
Well, the base
Don't we
bid,
have to go with the lowest bid?
Because we're choosing the
Yeah,
alternate.
we go, we
Responsible bidder.
have, by Iowa law, we
Qualified.
go with the lowest
Qualified.
responsible bidder. And even if it's $5 difference, that's what we would do.
well, it looks like the
So-
base bid was off by 25,886.
Right, but then
Is that
with
right?
the alternate, it
Right, yeah,
within this tiny little
right.
margin, I just thought that was interesting.
All the bids, there was 4 bids. They were all relatively close.
And
Yeah.
we are having discussion with Midwest on possibly reducing that alternate one, but we're not gonna do that till after this is approved, and we're basing the bid on the bid tab, bid results.
Any other questions? Can you remind us what were the funding sources that we're anticipating?
We'll be using the funding sources of ESSER. We'll also be using some of our own funding sources from SAVE. And we will possibly be using $1 million from the sale of the Madison campus.
Madison, okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
Ms. Shudek,
Yes.
Ms. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
and Mr. LaFurla.
Yes. And the Canesville Learning Center renovation bid has been approved. Next is approval of updated policy 420 and new administrative regulation 420.1. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that the board approve policy 420 and new administrative regulation 420.1, registration of licensed personnel, resignation of licensed personnel, and the corresponding administrative regulation per the board packet.
We have a
Oh, and
motion.
also going to waive the second hearing.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this policy and waive the second reading. Is there any questions or discussion?
Yeah, so this is a new policy, or an update to a policy, I should say, not a new policy, where we're really looking to make sure that those that had signed a contract with the district doesn't break their contract.
Correct.
In the middle of the summer or even late in the spring where it's hard to find a replacement for that teacher going into the fall. And so we're just hoping that this will let the employees know, the penalty that will be accrued if they decide to break their contract.
Well, I think the main thing is like if employees need to move to another district for their families, things like that. We just need to know early so we can hire staff to fill that position.
Yep.
I don't think we're in any way saying we don't want families to better themselves and to find better neighborhoods for them and their kids and jobs and all those things, but it's difficult to run a district when we're trying to plan on certain things on short notice and everybody else filled all their contracts, so.
And I would say it's a very small number of employees that we would have to go down for this route for.
And then I guess, how would this be communicated, I guess, when we come to contract time? Employees,
We'll make sure that that's part of the communication as we send the contract out with our employees to remind them of this policy.
okay.
Any other discussion?
I do-
Go ahead, Dr. Rowe.
I'm sorry. I do want to say thank you to the board for the conversation. We had a lot of conversation around this, and Mr. Milborn, who led the efforts and brought back updated drafts, and I really appreciate your input. Thank you.
Yes, we did discuss this policy recommendation more than once, I think, at one of our work sessions that we host prior to the board meetings. So part of the reason why we're comfortable with the waiving of a second reading is because we helped draft this policy in time and received drafts for review. So, okay, Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Ms. Myers,
Yes.
Ms. Shudek.
Yes.
Mr. Kazire.
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla.
Yes, the policy has been approved. Next, we have request for spending authority for the 2021-22 school year for special education deficits. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that the board request from the SBRC spending authority for 21-22 special education deficit of $2,242,078.65.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item?
I suppose we always say that, the district's required to spend what it is required to help our special education kids, and that means spending beyond what we're actually given from the state. But we do get spending authority, so we have the ability to attempt to always have cash for Dean to help run the district, right, Dean?
That's right, thank you.
So no new cash, just extra permission to spend cash.
Wonderful state thing.
Yeah. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
Ms. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Ms. Shudek,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire.
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla.
Yes, the motion has been approved. Next is SBRC MSA authority request for excess LEP costs. Is there a motion?
I can move that we approve the district's administration to submit a request for SBRC to modify its supplemental amount of $433,602.15 in excess cost, providing the LEP program in the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. A lot of acronyms in this resolution. Any discussion or comments?
You want to explain those?
Yeah, I thought, Dean, you want to walk them through this and what the request is for me.
Sure, so the state.
SBRC is,
Yeah, the SBRC is the School Budget Review Committee, and they are the body as designated by law that they hear whether or not districts can get additional spending authority by submitting applications. And we can do it for a variety of things. One of those things is excess ELL costs, and that's English language learners. And what that means is that we are given a year a weighting of so much for English language learners. And if our costs exceed what we are given, the state allows us to petition the SBRC for additional spending authority. It's not additional cash, it's just additional spending authority for those excess ELL costs. And so we spent about $433,000 over what we were given in revenue for the 21-22 school year.
So similar to the request for spending authority for a special education deficit, just different group of students.
Exactly.
Any other questions? Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Ms. Hudak?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes, the motion has been approved. Before us now is approval of the budget guarantee. Is there a motion?
I'll move the approval for a 1% budget guarantee request. May levy property tax for fiscal year 23-24 for the regular program budget adjustment as allowed under section 257.14 of the Iowa Code.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? Or maybe just a quick explanation for the public?
And Dean, you can do that again.
Okay. So, when enrollment decreases and state aid has said, it could happen where a district would actually not get any money. In order to help the districts get past it for 1 year so they can get their house in order, the law allows under section 25714 to at least give us a 1% increase in state aid if in fact our enrollment would drop enough where we would get less than 1%. And this is what, we pass this every year just in the off chance that we'd have to use it. We've had to use it a couple times in the last few years.
And it's important to have because the state bases SSA off of last year's enrollment. So that, yeah,
So enrollment for 23-24 will be based on the enrollment count in October
Right.
of this year.
right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Ms. Hudak?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes, and the motion has been approved. Next is approval of the Omni Business Center lease extension. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve an extension of the current Omni Business Center lease for the period of August 1st, 2024 through July 31st, 2034 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, we should probably throw out there the, I don't know if you wanted to go over the.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
Yeah,
think it's good that
specifics.
the public knows that it includes all of our utilities, parking, that they're going to upgrade or redo the carpet for us so we can have that there. All the maintenance is included and that, we're not gonna see an increase for the first 5 years of the 10-year lease that we are submitting.
Yeah, the district is 10 years ago, 8 years ago, began leasing the facility at $240,000 a year, lease cost, which included all the covered parking and all the nice new IT room or cold room, whatever we have over there. Remember, that was a huge boon for us originally. And that costs have now escalated up to $260 in that time, which is still seems like been a great boon to us, considering we were spending $30,000 a month over there, probably. I mean, that was just the parking and such. I mean, remember there was a savings coming over here, so we're still, when you look back at that, at a minimal increase year over year, and then to have a budget guarantee for 5 years, and then have a small step up at the end of this, you'd probably be paying somewhere around $280 10 years from now.
That's correct.
That sounds like a pretty good deal.
And I also think, Dean, we'll talk about the dollars come out of Pebble. It
The
does
dollars
not
do come out of Pepple, where when we had the lease, well, excuse me, when we owned the other building, all the parking came out of the general fund.
That's right.
Oh.
So we've made a
It's a lot
cost
of money.
savings there, and the best part is that we freeze for 5 years. And really, we're still looking at a square foot of $10 and like 80 cents, is it,
Yeah.
81 cents?
Right.
And that's still very reasonable for us to have a good space that offers some office space, some conference room spaces, professional development, learning areas, and we have parking for all of the staff members when they come.
And we talked about, just in comparison in our community, business space is running for about 20,
Yes.
if not more, per square foot. So to be at, just over 10 is fantastic.
I was surprised to learn that we were paying $20,000 a month for parking at the old building.
All the parking in the downtown area. It was ridiculous.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Shudek?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes. And the lease extension has been approved. Next is approval of standing committees. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the standing committees as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Yeah.
I would like
Absolutely.
to thank those that have signed up to serve on the 5 different committees that we have. It looks like we have a great list of community parents and students that are serving on our committees this year, so I'm very excited. Also, thank you, Ms. Ostrowski, for putting this together.
Yes, thank you. It's a big task. It's a big ask for a lot of different community members to volunteer to do this, so thank you.
Curious on this, I can't remember the recommendation of the committees on trying to bring in new voices each term. So was there a number that we have? Can't remember what that expectation was, or if it was just,
I know Diane does a great job of posting out every fall, asking for new community involvement. And I believe the Naparel ran a story on it earlier this year as well to try to get more people involved in the different ones. Good job, Diane.
Anything else?
You can see when the terms expire and how long they're on, so I think we've
Yeah.
done a good job of keeping a good variety.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Shudek?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
And Mr. LaFurla?
Yes, and the motion has been approved. Next is renewal of the Cox Business IP Centrex phone system. Is there a motion?
I can move the board approve the renewal of the Cox Centrix phone system for the duration of 120 months. And what a wonderful thing to be saving $7,000 per month.
Yeah,
I'll second
thank you. Motion and a second. I need more discussion.
I guess for folks, this is our VoIP phones for all the district, every building, every room, every phone we have. Had been paying about $18,000, looks like, per month for all of that, and cost has gone down on those to about $11,000.
Plus, we'll get new phones.
And we get new phones, because it is the update, so. Significant cost.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Ms. Shudek?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes, motion carries. And our last resolution is for PassPoint Security. Is there a motion?
I move that the board approves the PassPoint security penetration testing as a service as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd just like to comment that I'm really glad that, keeping with our mission of, keeping everyone secure, that we're keeping that through the internet as well with PassPoint Security. I was happy to see this.
I know that
Somebody
this-
wanna
I'm
talk about
sorry.
it?
Yeah, I'd like to invite John up to the podium to talk a little bit about it. This is something that the state has really started talking with districts about. Right now, the governor released the dollars for kind of hardening and protecting our schools. Right on the cuffs of that is really talking about cybersecurity. And John did a great job negotiating our phone contract, so I want to give him kudos for that, for saving the district dollars. And really did a lot of research and got a lot of information and did kind of an RFP to really get into this software company and why we would choose them. So if you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, PassPoint is an industry standard. Other UEN schools use them, other MOAC schools use them. What makes them unique is it's an ongoing penetration test, an ongoing monitoring. They're looking for things on the dark web. They're trying to be proactive throughout the year. In addition to that, their findings, they'll be working with my team to help guide us to better protect the students and staff.
So I know, sorry, I didn't mean to, I know part of that includes also like phishing campaigns to make sure that some of the, faculty and also, students are not clicking links they're not supposed to and things like that as well, right?
It is, and what's nice about this campaign, as things get clicked on, there's training behind that, and we can kind of have different levels of training depending on how often they've clicked on the wrong thing, or even when they click on the right thing, to give them kudos for that as well.
I know, John, a little bit of work that John's done, Patrick, is really around, we've kind of taken personal emails off the Chromebooks, and we've really set up where we're on guest networks even for our phones, and we have to re-sign in every 5 days. So John's doing a lot of work to try to protect the district and protect access to any information that they should not have, be it for students or employees. So I really appreciate his attention to that detail. We don't all love that. It's not real comfortable when we can't sign into something, or every 5 days I get something on my phone saying I'm no longer connected and I got to find out how to get reconnected. But it's what's best for the district in securing our information. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Shudak?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes, the motion has been approved. Finally is approval of our consent agenda, which includes several items. Approval of evaluation and testing programs for 2022-2023 school year. Acknowledgement of a $10,000 donation from Rick and Joan Crowell for the Early Learning Center project. Thank you. Contract for special education services with Angel Guardians. Special education amendment to a Transition Alliance program contract. Special education contracts with the Iowa Department for the Blind. Approval of special education contracts for students placed outside of the Council Bluffs Community School District at several locations. Personnel action and claims and accounts. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on the items in the consent agenda?
Not any discussion, but again, I think just thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Crowell for the generous donation to the Early Learning Center project. It's a project that, is for the community, and it's great to see the community involvement getting behind it, so.
Yep.
And I can remember when Mrs. Crowell was the principal at Franklin Elementary. She was there when my sons were there. So.
Wow. Oh, good. Yeah, that's great. Okay, any other questions or comments? Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Ms. Shudak?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes, the consent agenda has been approved, and that concludes our business for the evening, so we are adjourned. I'm
Go
sorry.
over what we talked about all this morning, or we did earlier?
Oh, at the work session, yeah. So the board does engage in a work session prior to every board meeting, where we kind of dive deeper into a topic that's on the agenda or just some sort of priority for the school year. And this evening, Mr. Wilson presented a lot of information on something called the District Trend Report, which includes sort of a deeper dive into enrollment history, open enrollment history, tax levy, property valuations, some discussion around the spending authority, which is included in some of the decisions that we made tonight throughout the resolutions. So just part of our way as a board of learning a little bit more in detail on some of the items that we have to take action on and that the state requires us to take action on. So, yeah. So, thank you, everybody. That concludes our business. We're adjourned.
No, they're not.
Every time I drive by, you think they'd at least take.
Well, I saw some electricians' trucks there.